There is a quiet way people push money away without ever noticing it, and almost everyone does it. It feels responsible, it feels smart, it even feels necessary. But according to old Jewish wisdom, this habit can weaken the very thing you are trying to build. I am talking about the way people count their money when fear is sitting in the room with them, not budgeting, not being wise. Fearful counting, the kind where you stare at the screen too long, the kind where you check the balance again, even though you already know the number, the kind where your chest gets tight before you even open the app. And here is the part most people never hear. Sometimes the problem is not only how much money you have. Sometimes the problem is the spirit you bring when you look at it. Stay with me, because this changes everything. What if the way you have been measuring your money is also shaping your stress, your choices, and even your future? What if the habit that feels like control is actually feeding panic? And what if one simple shift could make you feel calmer, think clearer, and move through life with more trust and more wisdom? By the end of this, you may never look at your bank account the same way again. Be honest for a second. Have you ever sat down late at night, opened your account, and felt your stomach sink before you even finished reading the numbers? Have you ever spread bills across the table, added them up, subtracted them again, and then repeated the same math like one more round would somehow create peace? Maybe you checked every card, every payment, every automatic charge, trying to make sure nothing slipped through. Maybe the numbers worked. Maybe the bills could be covered. But even then, you still felt poor. You still felt pressure. You still carried that heavy feeling into bed. If you know that feeling, then hear this clearly. The deepest problem is not always the amount sitting in front of you. Sometimes it is the relationship you have built with money itself. We live in a world that says to track everything, watch everything, monitor everything. And yes, there is wisdom in being careful, but there is a line. There is a difference between wise attention and fearful obsession. There is a difference between stewardship and panic. Many people cross that line without realizing it. They count from dread. They count like someone counting crumbs. And that inner posture slowly trains the mind to live in lack, even when there is enough for today. That posture affects decisions. It affects sleep. It affects courage. It affects what you notice and what you miss. I have seen another way. I have watched families who arrived with almost nothing build stable lives, thriving businesses, warm homes, strong communities, and a deep culture of generosity. They were not superhuman. They were not all lucky. They carried a set of teachings about money that shaped their thinking from the inside out. Those teachings came from Torah, from Talmud, and from generations that had to learn how to survive hard seasons without letting fear rule the soul. One of those teachings is about counting, and it is more powerful than it sounds. The ancient warning is simple. Blessing does not rest on what is counted in the wrong spirit. Let that sink in. Not that you should never review your finances, not that numbers are bad, but that anxious counting has a cost. There is an old story about a woman from a small town in Poland whose family ran a bakery. They were not rich in the flashy sense, but they always had enough, and there was always something to give away. She said her mother never counted the loaves while they were still rising, and never stood over the oven, obsessing about how many there would be. She would prepare the dough, place it in the heat, whisper a prayer, and step back. She believed that when you rush in with fear before the process is complete, you act as if you do not trust that more can come. That lesson from a small bakery carries a very big truth. When you hover over every dollar with anxiety, you are not just reviewing finances. You are telling yourself a story. The story says there will not be enough. The story says you are one step away from collapse. The story says safety only comes if you grip tighter. And once that story settles into the mind, it begins shaping every decision. You hold back when it would be wise to move. You cling when it would be wise to invest. You say no to good opportunities because fear makes every risk look fatal. Old Jewish wisdom speaks about the good eye, the way of seeing life with generosity, trust, and openness. And it warns against the bad eye, not as some dramatic curse, but as a way of looking at the world with suspicion, envy, and constant lack. When you look at your own finances through panic, you train yourself to see your own life through that narrow lens. That changes the emotional climate around your choices. So here is the shift. Do not stop being responsible. Do not stop knowing what comes in and what goes out. But before you review your money, slow down, breathe. Say thank you for what is here right now. Say thank you for what has already carried you. Say thank you for what is still on the way. Then review the numbers with a steady mind, not with a frightened heart. That is not denial. That is discipline at a deeper level. And that brings us to another powerful principle. In the Torah, when the people were to be counted, they were not counted head by head in a direct way. Each person gave a half coin, and the coins were counted instead. That detail matters more than most people think. The idea is that direct counting can isolate a living thing and turn it into a fixed object, a bare number stripped from context, spirit, and movement. Once that happens, the mind starts treating the number like the whole story. But your financial life is not one frozen total. It is not a scoreboard. It is a living flow. There was a man in one community who built a strong business over many years. He worked hard, started small, grew slowly, and eventually built real wealth. But he had one habit that quietly owned him. Every morning, he checked every account, every balance, every movement, every change. He wrote down his total worth each day to the last cent. If it went up, he felt relief. If it went down, even a little, and the whole day changed color. His mood, his energy, his judgment, all of it rose and fell with a number on a page. You already know where that kind of habit leads. It feels like discipline, but over time it becomes emotional dependence disguised as responsibility. And when your inner state is chained to daily fluctuation, you stop leading your money and start being led by it. Then a major client left his business without warning. That was a real challenge. Yes, every business faces moments like that. But what turned it into a disaster was not only the event, it was his obsession with measuring every shift so closely that the loss felt larger than life. He knew the exact amount disappearing. He could see the number fall in his notebook. And because his identity was wrapped around that daily total, he panicked. He rushed decisions. He sold strong assets too early. He cut people he still needed. He took weak deals because fear hates empty space and wants immediate relief. Within a short time, years of work were wounded badly. The lesson is clear. Direct, constant, fearful counting can make a normal setback feel like the end of the world. It puts every small crack under a magnifying glass until it looks like the whole house is collapsing. Old mystical teaching says blessing often moves through hidden channels. Growth does not always like bright lights and trembling hands. Think about a seed. If you dig it up every day to check if it is growing, you destroy the very process you are trying to measure. Money can be like that too. Not because numbers are evil, but because obsessive exposure creates fragility in the mind. And once the mind becomes fragile, bad decisions arrive quickly. Don't click away here, because the practical part of this may be the most useful thing you hear today. Give your finances a structure that protects your peace. Set a time to review them weekly, and maybe do a deeper review twice a month or once a month, depending on your life. When you sit down, review patterns, categories, direction, and decisions. Ask useful questions. Am I moving wisely? Is the flow healthy? Where am I being careless? Where am I being too tight? Where can I act with more courage? Where can I act with more restraint? Those are questions that strengthen a person, but avoid the ritual of checking your total worth every day as if your value rises and falls with a screen refresh. Your money breathes. Some months expand. Some months contract. Some seasons are for planting. Some are for harvesting. Some are for repairing leaks. Some are for learning patience. A garden is alive because it changes, and a wise person does not scream at the soil every morning demanding immediate proof. They tend it. They water it. They pull weeds. They watch carefully, but not hysterically. Treat your financial life with that kind of respect. Keep records, build plans, make corrections, but do not turn your entire existence into a single number you have to worship or fear. That way of living steals clarity, it steals rest, it steals gratitude, and when gratitude leaves, wisdom often leaves right behind it. Now listen closely, because this next part ties everything together. There is a famous teaching that asks a simple question: who is rich? The answer is not the one with the largest account. It is not the one with the biggest paycheck. It is the one who is happy with his portion. And that does not mean settle for scraps or give up on growth. It means something far deeper. It means real richness begins when a person can receive what is in their hands without bitterness, shame, or constant inner complaint. I once heard a story about a widow living in a modest apartment. Her means were limited. Her life was simple. But every week she prepared her table with such dignity, warmth, and joy that people felt abundance the moment they stepped through the door. She used her best dishes. She lit candles like she was welcoming honor itself. She served ordinary food with extraordinary presence. And over the years, help, opportunity, and unexpected kindness kept finding their way to her. A person she once encouraged later shared profits with her. An old connection remembered her generosity and left something behind. A neighbor offered something valuable to her for almost nothing because they knew she would treasure it. Did gratitude magically print money? No, but gratitude changed how she lived, how she related to others, how others felt in her presence, and how open she was to receiving what life placed before her. That is the secret many people miss. Gratitude is not passive. It is not lazy. It is not pretending problems are not real. Gratitude is a force that changes attention, emotion, choices, relationships, and endurance. When you count your money with fear, you are saying, "This is not enough. I am not safe, and I do not trust life to meet me tomorrow." When you stop obsessing and begin holding what you have with steadiness and thanks, you send a very different message through your whole system. You become less desperate. You see more clearly. You stop making tiny numbers into giant monsters. Mystical language describes gratitude as building a vessel, a container ready to receive blessing. Whether you take that spiritually, emotionally, or both, the picture is powerful. A heart filled with panic is like a cracked cup. Even good things arrive and leak out through stress, impulse, and fear. A heart sealed shut by obsession is like a cup turned upside down. Nothing can enter because there is no openness. But a grateful heart is upright, steady, and ready. It can hold what comes. It can share what overflows. It can remain calm long enough to act wisely. And in everyday life, that matters more than people realize. Calm people notice opportunity. Calm people negotiate better. Calm people sleep enough to think clearly. Calm people make better long-term moves. So try this tonight. Instead of ending the day by counting what you owe, count what carried you. Be specific. That part matters. Do not say only, "I am thankful for my life." Go deeper. Say, "I am thankful my legs carried me where I needed to go. I am thankful I had food. I am thankful for the person who answered my message. I am thankful the lights came on when I touched the switch. I am thankful for the roof that kept the weather out. I am thankful I made it through one more day with strength I did not fully see this morning." Be as detailed with your blessings as you have been with your bills. Then tomorrow morning, before you check any balance, begin with thanks. Start the day by remembering that your life is more than a number. That one shift can begin rewiring the emotional pattern around money. And if you think this sounds too small to matter, stay with me, because small repeated practices shape the deepest parts of a person. One fearful glance repeated every day can create a life of tension. One grateful pause repeated every day can create a life with more space, more peace, and more power. What you do first and what you do last each day slowly trains the soul. That is why this matters more than it seems at first. Let's bring it together clearly. The first principle is this: stop counting from fear. Review what you need to review, but do not do it with trembling hands and a mind already expecting disaster. The second principle is this: stop measuring your life too directly and too often. Wealth moves, it changes, it grows in seasons. It is wiser to manage the flow than worship the snapshot. The third principle is this: replace obsessive counting with deep gratitude. Not fake positivity, not empty words. Real gratitude rooted in reality. Gratitude for what is present. Gratitude for what has been sustained. Gratitude for the simple evidence that you are still here, still learning, still building, still being carried in ways you may not even see yet. When these three ideas begin working together, something shifts. The nervous system softens. The mind stops spiraling. The heart no longer treats every bill like proof of doom. You stop waking in the dark with the same question pounding in your chest. You stop reducing your entire existence to a balance on a screen. And in that space, peace begins to appear. Not a fake peace that ignores real life, but a stronger peace, the kind that can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still breathe steadily. The kind that says, I will act wisely, I will stay alert, but I will not hand my inner life over to fear. That kind of peace is not weakness. It is power with roots. There's also an old teaching that a person's yearly livelihood is set in ways deeper than simple math, and that certain kinds of giving and sacred spending are replenished in ways people do not always understand. The point is not to turn life into superstition. The point is to remember that money is not always a closed system. Generosity matters. Meaningful spending matters. Investment in family, learning, rest, and sacred rhythm matters. The world tells you every dollar leaving your hand is simply loss. But wisdom says some forms of giving keep the channel open. Some acts train the soul out of fear and into trust. Some expenses are not drains, but seeds. Think of what happens when a person spends only to protect ego or numb pain. That money often disappears with nothing to show for it. But when a person spends to nourish life, strengthen a home, support learning, lift another person, or honor what is sacred, something different happens inside them. They feel connected instead of depleted. They feel purposeful instead of empty. And that internal difference affects everything that follows. So yes, be thoughtful. Yes, live within wisdom. But do not believe the lie that life is only subtraction. Some of the most important things you will ever do with money cannot be measured by immediate return. Yet those are the very things that often create the deepest form of wealth over time. And let me say something many people need to hear. You are not defined by the hardest month you have had. You are not defined by a shrinking balance, a job scare, a slow season, or a stack of bills on the table. You may be under pressure. You may be in a season of rebuilding. You may be carrying responsibilities that feel heavy, but pressure is not the same as poverty of spirit. Real poverty begins when fear becomes your ruler, when every thought starts with not enough, when every choice is made from panic, and when gratitude feels impossible. That is the deeper loss this wisdom tries to protect you from, because once fear takes the throne, it can damage even a decent situation. And once trust returns, it can steady a difficult one. Families have carried these ideas through exile, through loss, through migration, through starting over in new lands with almost nothing. Yet somehow they kept building, they kept giving, they kept honoring life, they kept setting tables with dignity. They kept educating children. They kept making room for joy. That is not accidental. That comes from a vision of money that is larger than money. A vision that says provision is not only what sits in the account today. Provision is also strength, wisdom, relationships, discipline, commercial, and the ability to keep moving without surrendering your heart to terror. So from this moment on, change the ritual. Do not wake up and instantly hand your peace to a number. Do not close your day by rehearsing fear like it's a prayer. Build a better pattern. When you review finances, do it with intention. Sit upright, breathe slowly, look honestly, make practical choices. Write down what needs attention, fix what can be fixed, plan the next step. But do not add panic to the list. Panic is not a strategy. It only drains the intelligence you need most. And when you feel the urge to check again, and then check again one more time, pause and ask yourself, am I looking for wisdom right now, or am I feeding anxiety? That one question can save you from 100 unnecessary spirals, because many times what people call being careful is really just fear asking for another turn. Be careful, yes. Be awake, yes, but be ruled by wisdom, not by dread. If this is landing with you, hold on, because the final shift is simple and powerful. It may sound small, but it can reset the whole atmosphere around your money. And sometimes atmosphere is where change begins before results can be seen. Start treating your money like a garden you are called to tend, not like a courtroom where you stand accused every day. In a garden, you still work. You still prune, plant, water, and protect. You still pay attention to timing. You still remove what harms growth. But you do not scream at the soil. You do not curse the seed because it is not a tree yet. You do not demand fruit out of season. You do not decide the whole field is dead because one leaf turned brown. That is the emotional maturity this script is calling for. It is not anti-money. It is not anti-planning. It is anti-fear as a way of life. Build budgets, track spending, save, invest, learn, ask questions, improve your habits, but do all of it from the posture of a builder, not the panic of someone convinced the whole future hangs on one moment of shaking. Builders think long-term. Builders stay teachable. Builders know storms come and go. Builders know one setback does not erase 10 years of effort. Builders know rest is part of strength. Builders know that gratitude keeps the hands steady. And when the hands are steady, the work gets better, the relationships get better, the judgment gets better. Even the ability to enjoy what you already have gets better. That enjoyment is not a side note. It is part of wealth. What is the point of gaining more if fear makes it impossible to feel any of it? Here is another layer most people overlook. Obsessive counting does not only create stress, it also shrinks imagination. When the mind is trapped in survival mode, it can only see immediate threat. It becomes reactive. It forgets how to create. It loses flexibility. It misses quiet openings because it is staring too hard at one narrow problem. But when you create room through gratitude and calm review, the mind expands again. Solutions appear. Conversations happen. Patterns become clearer. You remember skills you already have. You reach out instead of withdrawing. You notice that one call you need to make, that one expense you can cut without pain, that one opportunity you ignored because fear kept shouting. This is why the inner posture around money matters so much. It does not just affect emotion, it affects perception, and perception changes outcomes. A fearful person may have resources but act as if there are none. A grounded person may have limited resources but use them with surprising wisdom. That difference can shape a whole year. So when you hear, "Stop counting like this," the message is not become careless. The message is become clearer. Stop using numbers to punish yourself. Stop turning measurement into a ritual of dread. Let numbers be tools, nothing more. Tools serve the builder. They do not become the builder's master. Once you understand that, everything starts to breathe again. And if financial anxiety has been sitting on your chest for a long time, let this be the day you answer it differently. Not with denial, not with fantasy, but with a stronger spirit. Say to yourself, "I will not count with fearful hands anymore. I will review with wisdom. I will move with patience. I will remain grateful, even while I am growing. I will not let one hard season teach me a false story about my whole life." I will not measure my worth by the most stressful number in front of me. I will practice peace on purpose. I will protect my mind from habits that make me small. I will remember that trust is not passivity. Trust is what keeps me from making panic-driven choices that cost more than the original problem. If you need to, write those words down. Read them before you open the banking app. Read them before you pay bills. Read them when the old fear tries to return. Because new financial habits are not only external, they are internal first. The external part follows. That is how real change lasts. It begins in the unseen places, the tone of your thoughts, the speed of your breathing, the stories you repeat in private. Change those, and the outer life starts changing too, often in quiet ways before visible ones arrive. That is how deep shifts usually happen. So take this with you. Stop counting from terror. Stop measuring your whole life by direct, constant totals. Start building a daily practice of specific gratitude. Protect your peace when you review your money. Give yourself rhythm instead of obsession. See your finances as movement, not doom. See your life as larger than the bill in front of you. And remember that real wealth is not only what you hold, it is also the way you hold it. With fear, it owns you. With wisdom, it serves you. With panic, even enough can feel empty. With gratitude, even a small beginning can become the seed of something strong and lasting. If something in you feels calmer right now, hold on to that. That is not weakness. That is the beginning of a better way. And if this message hit home, let it stay with you tonight when the room gets quiet and the old urge to count everything comes back. Meet that moment with a different spirit. Breathe, give thanks, review wisely, then let your mind rest. You do not need to rehearse fear to be responsible. You do not need to be shaken to be serious. You do not need to live under the weight of numbers to build a stable life. Move with wisdom, keep your hands open, keep your heart steady, and let peace become part of your prosperity too.